You are listening to Racing Stories, a podcast that inspires enthusiasts to hear and learn about what it takes to get into and succeed in motorsport. My name is Danny Mattess, your host. I sit down with people who work, drive, live and breathe to compete. Brought to you by Real Wheels Media. Welcome to this episode of the Real Wheels Media Racing Stories podcast. We say hello today to Ben Pemberton, racing driver, a brand ambassador, and motorsport mechanic. Welcome, Ben.
Hi, Danny. Thanks for having me on.
So, opening your story at chapter 1, how does it all begin?
Well, I suppose it starts when I was very young. My dad and I used to sort of play a little game. So when I was younger, my parents divorced and my dad used to come and pick me up, and it was a long drive. So basically, my dad would sort of give me little games to play, sort of, oh, how many Fords can you spot, or what car's that over there, kind of thing. You keep me sort of occupied as a young lad on a sort of long drive. And then sort of since then, we've sort of bonded over cars. And when I got a little bit older, my dad would like service his cars, and you'd be like, oh, can you grab me that 10mm spanner? So I learned to pick up what a 10mm spanner was, or an imperial spanner. My dad would do an oil change, and it would be, oh, can you hold that for me, kind of thing, or hold the torch there for us, son, and that kind of thing. And it was just that sort of bonding with my dad when I was a lot younger, sort of got me interested in sort of cars and tinkering with cars and sort of fixing things. And my dad was in the Air Force for quite a few years when I was younger. So
Okay.
I was always sort of around vehicles and aircraft and on base, that kind of thing. So I've always kind of been exposed to that sort of aerospace, mechanical engineering kind of thing. So that's really sort of where it stemmed from, sort of my basic interest in sort of cars. But then obviously we used to watch the racing. So there was, cracking F1 races going on back in the early 90s. When I was a lad. I was showing my age now. And the super touring era was sort of going in full effect in British touring cars. So, on a Sunday, if I was over, it was kind of Sunday afternoons was sort of Formula One with dad and British touring cars sort of thing. So that's sort of where my love of motorsport sort of came from. And so my dad always used to tinker on his own cars. So that's kind of where that sort of hands-on side of it's come from, but then also bonding with him and that love of racing from watching it growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember the days when it was on BBC Grandstand, and they had they sometimes pause some of the results just to have the touring cars live. And Formula One too. I mean, we think about Murray Walker and the commentary, legendary commentary there, where sports really were entertaining, as they still are now, but perhaps a bit more pay-per-view. But no, fantastic. And in terms of the tinkering, I mean, the smell of oil, the feel of tools in your hand. Did you pick up much from watching your dad and what he did around the house and around the garage?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, even now I can remember my dad working on his Ford Orion and his old Escorts, and yeah, like it was like on the drive or in the garage, and that smell of the old oil jugs from back in the day, and sort of the clanking of the spanners. And yeah, even now I can sort of see it in my head. I was maybe 7 or 8 to 10 sort of age, and sort of helping my dad out. And my dad was sort of an engineer in the RAF, so any kind of little DIY things, we would putting up shelves or building furniture from like MFI or B&Q or whatever, and the gardening and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it was good. It was sort of a bonding experience with my dad, but also I picked up so many useful skills, things like just changing a fuse in a plug and that kind of thing, and just how to handle a spanner and changing nuts and bolts around. And my dad would just give me stuff to tinker with, so I've always kind of sat there and sort of played around with things. So that's sort of where it come from on that side. But good memories back then as a kid, sort of in the 90s. Growing up, sort of looking up to my dad, going, wow, kind of my hero kind of thing as a young boy. Most sort of kids, I think they sort of look up to their dad like that. So
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so those were the early days, but it wasn't too much longer before you were kind of getting more hands-on in a different way. So many people dream of racing cars, but in terms of actually getting behind the wheel, what can they expect to have to do to obtain that holy grail of a racing license, Ben?
Um, well, I would say if you're really serious about going racing, it's that old adage, sort of be prepared to spend a little bit of money. It isn't the most expensive hobby in the world, but it can get expensive depending on sort of how deep you want to get into it.
Hmm.
The best thing I would suggest is find a circuit near to you, find a race weekend that's on, go down, chat to some of the drivers and sort of say, look, what do I need to do as far as getting my race license? And most drivers would be very, very happy to talk to you about it. Um, for me, I found it pretty straightforward. So by chance, I just happened to be looking at some old races on Castle Combe, actually, because I've lived sort of in the Southwest a little while. And I got chatting to somebody, I can't remember his name now, but basically, he pointed me to the MSUK website. So if you go onto the MSUK website, you can download or like an application form for what's called like a starter pack.
Yep.
And basically, it's I think when I paid for mine a few years ago, it was £99. I think it's about the same now, if maybe gone up a few quid. But basically, you pay for this starter pack, and what's in it is you get like a small booklet, and it gives you terminologies with like, you know, how to act on track, what the different flags mean. There's some videos that give you sort of instruction on driving safely as far as lines and that kind of thing. So once you've kind of got through that and you think, okay, I definitely want to take it to the next step. Once you've filled out the form and sent off for the ARDS test. So what the ARDS test is it's just basically like a road license test. There's a theory side to it and a practical side to it.
Okay.
So normally you would have to go to a sanctioned circuit to do it. So by that, it means that it has to have somebody with a certified ARDS instructor in order to facilitate you taking the test.
Okay.
I did mine at Thruxton. Castle Combe do them. Pretty much every circuit from Knockhill to Pembury to Brands and Thruxton, Goodwood, they all sort of have them available.
Thruxton, the fastest UK circuit, of course, Church Corner.
Yeah. So this is like my first time on track ever. I've never done a track day. I'd only been to watch some events. I'm trying to think where I went. I think I watched some touring cars in the mid 2000s. I was about 18, 19. I went to Silverstone actually and watched. I think it was the final when they used to do the final on the old GP layout before they added that new bit. That's going back a while.
He's going back it very much.
Something like that. It was a long time.
Yeah.
And yeah, so basically you will arrive at the circuit. There's sort of a slight briefing with an instructor that will basically say, obviously, you know, you're here to do your ARDS test today. You know, have you prepared kind of thing. And what you'll do is you'll go into a room. It's very, very chill, very relaxed. You know, I was more stressed doing my GCSEs and doing my ARDS test, the theory side anyway.
Okay.
So usually it's multiple choice questions. So effectively it's, what does this flag mean? And, you know, what does a red flag mean? It's like, well, obviously slow down, be prepared to pull in or stop, or you know, it means go faster, or it means like pull over. Or so basically what they're looking for is it's looking for more sort of how competent you are with sort of figuring out what to do and where to be on circuit. So I don't think that, you know, it's not like you're passing an A level and it's going to be really technical minded. It's pretty straightforward. They're more just checking that you're sort of competent and safe, really.
Understood.
Yeah. So after the theory side of it, then obviously your paper is taken away and marked. And then if all that goes through well, then obviously they take you out to the practical side. Now, obviously, this is where I was like really nervous because I'm going out on circuit, never been on circuit before. I'm there by myself. And then obviously I'm at Thruxton, which is like ridiculously fast circuit.
Isn't it just? Yeah.
Yeah. So the instructor says to me, well, you've got a choice of car. What would you like to go out in? And I was like, oh, okay. This is like all new to me. I didn't really know what to expect. And he said, well, we've got a Focus ST or a Porsche Cayman. And I was like, before he even finished saying Cayman, I was like, Porsche. Obviously, having never driven a rear-wheel drive car, having never driven a rear-engine car, never driven a car over maybe 150 horsepower, I thought, yeah, why not? But then I thought, as I got in there in the passenger side, and he took us out for a few sighting laps, and he wasn't messing about. I was sort of pulling my seatbelt a bit tighter and sort of sweating and thinking, oh Lord, you know, oh, this is maybe I've got in a bit over my head. But to be fair, he was very, very calm and very relaxed sort of, situation. He's done thousands of laps, I imagine, of that circuit. And so he pulls into the Parc Fermé, the sort of assembly area. He says, right, your turn. I went, oh, and I sort of got out and I was shaking a bit. And I got in there and to be fair, pulled out, looked, sort of checked my sides, good spatial awareness. There was some open wheel cars going round on sort of
Okay.
a experience day. So it was very, very quick. There's some other quick machinery going out there. And I put my foot down and we went, and he sort of sat there and did the sort of assessing side of it. And basically all they're doing is just sort of checking what kind of lines you're doing. Are you looking? Are you checking for traffic? Are you getting blue flagged? Are you pulling over? So I was a bit sort of skittish, and then obviously coming sort of around the back section of Thruxton where the really fast bit is into church, and I was sort of thinking I'm going 1,000,000 miles an hour on the Millennium Falcon, but it was probably only maybe like 80 miles an hour or so.
Okay.
And he's sort of going, you can go a little bit faster.
Okay, so giving you a bit of a steer to put your foot down a bit more, despite having all that different speed machinery around you. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously he explained that, we're not out here to set lap records. And obviously the caveat is if you go off or you spin, you fail, unfortunately. So what they're looking for is they're not looking for sort of a Sunday driver, but then at the same time, you're not out there to break lap records. They want you to push yourself, to get a little bit out of your comfort zone, but to be sort of safe with it rather than just, kind of thing and just sort of going hell for leather and not in losing control. So he pushed me, and I think we got up to about 110, 115, and that was terrifying, but exhilarating.
Yeah. On the test situation. So theory test, spatial awareness of dangers, flags, driving technique, awareness of what's going on around you, but also some encouragement from the instructor there to push you to perhaps just beyond your comfort zone, but to stay safe, not spin and pass that test. And of course you did, Ben, which is fantastic. So well, thanks so much for talking through your early memories, really, in terms of what got you into cars and thinking about the motorsport, the Formula One, the touring cars, and also giving us some really unique insight into the test, the two-stage test, the theory and practical test around getting that racing license for those people that want to actually take their skills and their dreams to the track. But racing isn't all about driving. So racing machines need meticulous preparation to perform and perform reliably. What about being a race mechanic yourself has deepened your appreciation of what it takes to go racing, and what has your experience been from that side of things? And not necessarily behind the wheel, but preparing the cars for other drivers to take to the track in anger.
Well, I can certainly say that from being on the other side of the wheel of the car, you could say, I have a much deeper appreciation of all of the sort of people and the team behind the scenes that you might not necessarily see as a driver. Obviously, the people that might prep it in the workshop or the factory, and then you've got the trackside personnel as well, and even just somebody there just to kind of go, well, you didn't do too good on that race. Don't worry, we'll focus on the next one, kind of thing.
Okay.
And then obviously you need to have that kind of synergy with your team and the guys sort of, or girls, working on the car underneath you, because obviously it's all great, and the driver gets all the glory, but realistically, it's the team and the mechanics and the engineers that really do put the thing together. And having that kind of that trust as well, that obviously I'm torque tightening wheel nuts on a car that might be doing 100, 115, 120 plus miles an hour on a straight, and as a driver, you need to have that trust that your mechanics are going to sort of do those kind of checks for you and ensure that, your machine is going to work perfectly for you. And like I said, I think it's just that understanding between sort of the mechanics, the machine, and the drivers. It's that synergy that you kind of get as like that whole team environment. And obviously, coming from sort of an engineering background myself, I can understand working on some sort of heavy machinery and expensive stuff. But, if it goes wrong, it can be costly. And obviously, people's lives are at stake. So I think it's that importance of really having that focus on doing the job right and making sure that the driver and everybody else involved in the race is safe as well. I think it's very important.
So aside from the teamwork and working with mechanics, you just gave us some insight there, Ben. That talking to the drivers, listening to the drivers, getting a
Mm,
feel for what they think is going on, under the tires between the car and the track is important.
yes.
In terms of the parts though that go into a race car, when you look at a race car, there's often things stripped out like back seats and a roll cage put in. But in terms of the parts and components, what are some of the things that you found yourself working most commonly on, or things that become more familiar to you in terms of the routine, if you like, of being a motorsport mechanic? What are the big things that a mechanic has to look out for, in addition to some of the things you've said, to make sure that when the car leaves parc ferme and heads out on the track, as far as you're concerned as the mechanic, you've done what you needed to do?
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, one of the main things is brakes, because obviously it's all well and good having, 1,000 horsepower machine, but if you can't stop coming
Yeah,
into a corner, then that's a major problem.
of course.
So obviously learning to sort of understand and sort of check on brakes. So drivers give you a little bit of feedback going, oh, I was braking and it was pulling a little bit to this side, or it was pulling to
Okay.
this side, or it was juddering.
Yep.
So you think, oh, okay, that could be several possibilities. So knowing what to sort of look for when a driver might present you with a problem,
Okay.
I think is key as well. You need to sort of understand that, oh, if it's pulling to the left, then probably you might have something either stuck in the caliper or
Yep.
you've got a wheel bearing issue,
Okay.
that kind of thing. So obviously, when it comes to doing your spanner checks, get into a bit of a routine. So normally, cars come in off a session, it's hot, check hot tire pressures, get a note of those. Because if the driver says, well, actually, car felt a little bit loose in the back end, okay, well, maybe we can lower tire pressures for the next round. Or if the temperature's going down or going up, we need to make that adjustment. Or potentially, if the vehicle's fitted with brake bias, it might be, well, you keep locking up the rears, so maybe we need to load you a bit more bias on the front, that kind of thing. And
Okay.
um,
Okay.
adjusting suspension. So it would normally be the car would be coming in, it'd be take hot pressures, help the driver get out, obviously have a quick chat with the driver. How did it feel? How was it going? And then obviously let the driver just go off, do their own thing. We'll take it from here and we'll look over everything. So normally it would be car up after the tire pressures, wheels off. Then obviously we're checking for like, well, we call it torque seal, like tamper seal.
Okay.
So if we've got a lot of the subframe bolts on the exterior towards like the axles, then obviously we're just checking for any movement, that kind
Okay.
of thing, taking them, torquing them, just making sure that everything's tight, checking the brake pads. Obviously, if there's not a lot of meat left on the pads, we're going to need replacing. Checking the wheel bearings as well. So obviously we'll put the wheels back on, just give them a wobble, top and bottom. Always a bit of play in there, and we might want to look at that. And then also as well, we string the cars. So if you don't know what stringing the cars, I mean, effectively, we put a small frame front and back that has two rods, and then we connect some pieces of string, literally
Okay.
string. And then what you do is you use that string to basically box. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure that that beam is exactly parallel down both sides and you've got the same measurement. Then you know that you're square. Then you can check your wheel alignment. So if the driver maybe has hit a curb or come into contact with another vehicle, maybe one of the wheels is slightly out. So you need to make sure that the toe is set correctly. And these are all the sort of things that, if the cars come in off a session, that we need to go through and systematically tick off on our list to make sure that the car is ready and prepped, so that the driver gets back in. He knows that or she knows that it's exactly how it was before, or if we've made some adjustments, that they know in their heads they can just focus on their drive and get on with the task ahead.
So certainly from what you told us today, Ben, the mechanic's to-do list is very long, and it's all about an ongoing dialogue, if you like, between you, the driver, and the vehicle to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you're diagnostic checking comments back from the driver, but also doing the routine checks that are there for safety and reliability. That's brilliant. So in terms of your racing story, though, Ben, it's somewhat unique in that, in addition to preparing race machines that you've given us a lot of detail of, your driving, in terms of race driving, took off big time into 2023. Tell us about what that looks like for you.
Yeah, so basically, I did my ARDS test in 2020. It was kind of one of those, we weren't able to go anywhere during lockdown. So I sort of had a bit of money sat in my back pocket and sort of
Okay.
went, oh, I kind of had this dream of driving. So did my ARDS test. And then switched up jobs and I was traveling a lot for work internationally, so I just didn't have the time for it. So I thought 2023 is going to be the year. Let's make it happen. So a little bit of a palaver trying to renew my license because I had an undiagnosed medical condition that turned out not to be a medical condition. So I had a bit of issues renewing my license, but finally got it in the middle of the season last year, and basically just wrote off and emailed every single arrive and drive I could find within sort of a 100-mile radius going, I want to race. I've got money. Yeah, take my money. I want to race.
Okay.
So yeah, it was quite interesting how I managed to cram in, like it almost felt like 3 different seasons in 3 different championships in 1 year. So I was originally going to race with Team Garoba, and they run in the CSCC Tin Tops in the Puma Cup subclass. I tested with the guys, so basically had them come down to Castle Coombe, a circuit I was very familiar with. Had a few laps around, car felt great, low powered, so it wasn't like mega scary, but fun. Could get it sliding around and stuff and build a little bit of confidence. But unfortunately, with the licensing issue, I wasn't able to do the race at Thruxton in May. So I kind of put that on the back burner and then approached some guys. They were Driven Home and 119 Racing, and said, oh, do you guys do arrive and drive and you do it at Castle Coombe? They said, yeah. I said, oh, well, great. That's right on my doorstep. So kind of just got chatting over a few weeks. And then from there, it was, okay, right, let's go do a race. So I ended up doing a double header at Castle Coombe on bank holiday, August bank holiday last year. Did really, really well. I came home with 2 second-in-class finishes in Class C, so I was thrilled. And then basically said, yeah, okay, well, I'll finish out the rest of the season with you. And then did another race with them in October. But in between that, being a mechanic for the Focus Cup, I saw how interesting it was and thought, oh, I want to try and give that a go. So I approached Simon Walton, the guy who runs the championship, and actually my boss, because I'm a mechanic in the Focus Cup, and said, oh, I'd love to have a drive. Can I have a drive? And he went, yeah, go on then. And I was like, oh, really?
Just like that.
Kind of went, oh, right, okay. Wasn't sort of expecting a yes, but yeah. So handed him some money and said, can I race? And ended up racing at Brands last year and did 4 races over the weekend. And yeah, mixed results. Didn't do too badly. I think I had a 10th, 11th, a 13th, and oh yeah, a DNF because I went off. It got a bit greasy, and I was chasing another driver who I actually spanner for, and was sort of all over him, but ran out of talent coming around the last corner at is it Clearways off Surtees? And
sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, ran out of talent and ended up in the kitty litter. And there was some choice words in the cockpit, but it was all me, my fault. So I put my hand up and went, yeah, I ran out of talent there a little bit in that corner, but well, it was a fun weekend, interesting experience. So I'd definitely do it again.
Okay, and I can spot some silverware over your shoulder there. So is that from 2023? Yes. Tell us about that quickly.
So 2 of the trophies there are for my 2 second-in-class finishes at Castle Coombe.
Okay.
The other one with a little medal on it. Bring it over. This was for my 3rd second-in-class finish at 2023, and the little silver medal actually is for coming 2nd place in the Mario Kart tournament at Silverstone with some of the Formula Ford guys, because I was there doing a sort of an end-of-year blowout race just to sort of just have a bit of fun really and try a faster car.
Well, a lot of people can testify to driving Mario Kart. I think a few people can testify to getting a silver medal in that game. So that has to be a first that I've, at least from my perspective, that I've come across, Ben. So that's quite impressive.
Yeah. Oh, it was quite impressive for me because I'm actually a Crash Team Racing guy. I was always brought up on the PlayStation, so to actually do well in Mario Kart, I was more surprised than everybody else, I think, because I'm usually quite terrible at it. So.
There seems to be no end to your driving talents, Ben.
Oh, wow, you're too kind.
Okay, so 2023, quite a packed year, and you've got the trophies to testify. So really tasting success behind the wheel as well as building your experience as a race mechanic. So on both tracks, if you like, on both sets of expertise, something to show for your efforts, which is brilliant. So moving to this year, 2024, has that been a settling in year for you, or do things still feel quite new?
I think, yeah, it's sort of a little bit of both. This is more a sort of a year two kind of development year for me. So this year at Castle Combe, they've announced that the Hot Hatch Challenge or Hot Hatch Series is now an officially sanctioned championship.
Okay.
So with a fully fledged championship right on my doorstep, the decision to re-sign with the team was a very easy one. So Driven Home Racing is now under the 119 Racing banner. So I basically approached the team in the off season around about early December time and said, obviously, we're moving into a championship. I'm looking for a new challenge. I've already tested in one of your Class E cars, which is a supercharged R53 Mini. I was racing with them in a Class C, a naturally aspirated Mini Cooper. And obviously, I've had a little bit of experience with it. So I said, well, can I run that car next year? And they sort of went, yeah, if you want to. Obviously, we discussed what the prices were and everything, and it fell within my budget. So I sort of early this year, I just basically paid my deposit for the full championship. And yeah, we had our first round Easter Monday, did quite well. I think it was a P5 and a P6 in the two races. Really had to fight for those positions, I'm not going to lie, because we've got another guy, Max, who's in a slightly more developed Class E car. He's a very, very good driver, young guy, can really pedal. And I think I beat him by 2/10 at the line in the first race to take P5. He was all over me. I was sweating. So you really made me fight for it. And Max, if you're watching, yeah, it was cracking, mate. Really, really good battle. And then obviously in the second race, Max got past me a bit earlier on. But then actually there was quite a cheeky little move that I managed to pull off where there was some lapping traffic coming round us. And Max and I were sort of jockeying for position. He got in front of me, but then we were battling another guy, Ray Ferguson in an MGZR. And Max managed to get through because he had a bit more power. But Ray sort of left the door a little bit open coming into the chicane. And I just sort of went, ooh, I think I can outbrake you here, and just managed to squeak in. It was very, very cheeky, but avoided contact.
Okay.
It was a clean move. But I did kind of approach Ray afterwards. That was a bit naughty. I'm sorry about that, Ray. But he laughed, and now Max and I are known as the two rascals. So
well,
we're known for hunting in packs.
I felt like I was in that race, Ben. You should consider commentary. If you get tired of racing and mechanicking, then you should consider a career perhaps in race commentary, because I felt as you were going through your description there what was going on. I really felt part of it. So no, that's fantastic.
Yeah, you're not the first person to say that. So
oh
yeah.
well, there you
Might
go.
Consider it. You never know.
You never know. Okay, so thanks so much for getting us through the last year and a bit, really, from 2023, finding your feet in different championships, a taster of the Focus Cup, and now this year at Castle Combe, very much consistency around the car, the team, and the track, which is really good to hear. Thinking about the business end of racing, how important are partnerships in motorsport? And perhaps you can tell us about some of those partnerships you've been able to forge so far.
Yeah, actually, I suppose for more the sort of club level where I'm sort of racing at the moment, it's not as important, but certainly learning how to forge partnerships, approaching potential sponsors is something I think that every club level race should at least attempt. Because yeah, inherently motorsport can become very, very expensive, towards the upper echelons of the sport. Personally, for me, I've always sort of had a very sort of outgoing sort of personality. I did a lot of work in sales and retail when I was younger. So
okay,
sort of approaching people and sort of talking to them and just sort of saying, hey, this is me kind of thing, can you give me some money or what have you? Hasn't really been a sort of a problem for me, but I'm very pleased that obviously by pure chance, I was talking to a person, I'll drop her name as Mel, and Mel runs 92 Automotive, and actually that's quite a good opportunity if you don't mind. I'm just going to
please do
try and appease the sponsor a little bit there.
Very good.
So I approached Mel, and she
Dip
was
your head a
doing.
little. We can see it better.
Is
There
that
we go.
better?
There we
Yeah,
go.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
is that
Don't
better?
stoop. You'll get an ache.
There you
Brilliant.
go.
Carry
So
on.
fantastic. So I approached Mel at a track day. So Driven Home and 119 were putting on a track day where basically people could just come and try out the cars. But at the same time, I was using the sessions as a test to just get a bit more experience behind the supercharged Mini. So I got talking to her, and it was like, oh, you're into motorsport kind of thing, blah 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 blah, and chatting. Oh, by the way, I run this business. I said, oh, that's very interesting. I'm trying to get some sponsorship going and just sort of see where I can go with my motorsports career. And she said, oh, right, okay. And then didn't really think much of it, and we ended up becoming quite good friends and got talking. And then I said, look, I'm going to be doing this championship. I'm taking it seriously. How do you feel coming on as sort of a partner? And she was like really up for it. So I was really, really pleased about that. So basically what we've done is I'm what's called a brand ambassador. So
Okay.
I get some sort of free merch like the hat, t-shirts and stuff like that. And then obviously when I come on places like this, I sort of talk about the sponsor and then sort of promote it in the hashtags and in the socials and that kind of thing. And it's helping Mel's business get some exposure, and it's also helping me sort of look better to potential sponsors down the road. It's like, well, okay, he's sort of growing a social platform. He's got sort of a partnership going on. So, oh, actually, yeah, it looks like I might want to give that guy some money. I mean, it's very, very unlikely for me in my situation, but you can't rule these things out. And if you want to go a little bit further and things cost a little bit more money, then by all means, approaching companies, to try and get some sponsorship partnership work out of them. I certainly think that every club level racer should at least attempt it. Try and be professional about it. Go onto PowerPoint, build a little presentation, a sponsorship proposal, and if you are really considering going for sponsorship, I strongly recommend you at least try. You probably get a lot of no's, unfortunately. It's just inherent with the cost of living and everything going on and prices going up. But for every 100 no's, you may get a yes. So it's that yes that's really going to help, your confidence and just help you build that sort of partnership brand recognition through your racing. That's all I can sort of say on that part, really.
Okay, well, I'll just do a quick reminder to our audience to check out the links in the description of our YouTube video to have a look into some of these brands and some of these partnerships that Ben has forged and is very much in the stage of developing. That's brilliant. So aside from sponsors and ambassadorships for brands, thinking about Ben Pemberton Racing compared to Ben Pemberton, the person, how important, even at club level or any level, is building a personal brand, sharing about you with an audience to grow that following and make people aware of what you're up to and what you're doing and what you stand for?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think one of the things that sort of young and budding racers seem to forget is that people actually enjoy the journey. It's sort of a human interest story. So actually seeing what you do as far as, well, I'm traveling to circuit or I'm testing or I'm doing this, like people are genuinely interested. And if you can make it sort of relatable without sort of how you sort of express yourself rather than sort of being, yeah, I'm a racing driver and I'm this and I'm that. It's like, well, yeah, I'm racing, but this is sort of what it's like. And if people get more of a sense of more personable, I suppose, people tend to like that. At the moment, I've got something like maybe 100 followers on Instagram and maybe 70 or something on Facebook, which is, yeah, I'm fine. I was quite happy with that. Obviously, yeah, I'd like a few more, maybe get to 1,000 or something. Like, I don't know. But I try and post not sort of just filler content, just everyday posting, but I try and post regularly. So maybe 3 times a week, post consistently. I think that's important. So consistency with posts, make it interesting. If you don't really have too much to say, then post a memory or something, or, oh, this is what I was doing in my motorsports career a couple of years ago or 6 months ago or something. Just something so that your followers can kind of get a sense of who you are and your journey and sort of where you've come from and sort of what you're looking towards, and setting some goals, things like, oh, I want to enter a race at this circuit, or I'd like to be in this championship in 2 years, or something like that. And I think sort of approaching it from that kind of perspective, I think earns you sort of more respect, and as because it's more personable, I think, in that sort of sense.
Understood. Well, Ben, thank you so much for going through some of the challenges, if you like, but also the highlights and importance of forging some of those commercial relationships and personal branding.
No, great. Yeah, like I said, it's something that's very important to me, and something that I think more people, if they're trying to get into racing, should definitely sort of give a shot.
So, Ben, you say you race with autism. What does that mean for you?
Well, obviously, for me, I wasn't diagnosed until I was actually in my 30s. I think it was 2017, 2018. I kind of grew up feeling a little bit different, and was sort of gifted in the sort of technical sense, but struggled to sort of make friends and that kind of thing. Honestly, since I've started getting into racing, the mechanicing, driving, meeting other people, like-minded people around the paddock, I've made so many good, strong connections and friendships, and sort of relationships. That's really important to me as somebody who's sort of very struggled sort of socially, and sort of had a bit of social ineptitude because of like my autism.
Okay.
But also want to prove a point that, just because I have sort of I don't like to say disability, because I don't feel disabled, and I don't think I should consider myself disabled, but certainly I have a sort of developmental disorder that can get in the way at times. So it's very important to me that I can go out there, and I don't get any special dispensation. I go out there, I drive the car. It's down to me. I have to improve my racecraft. I have to fight for position. With everybody else, it's sort of I think that motorsport can be quite a sort of a good leveler. You get different people of different backgrounds, and different ages and abilities and that kind of thing, and you can all just get out into a grid, and you're all sort of fighting against, it's in the spirit of motorsport, you're fighting against each other for position. So it was just a point to me to prove that I could actually do something that was considered challenging, or I would tell people that I've got autism and I want to get into motorsport, and people are sort of looking like, oh, you can't be doing that kind of thing. And it's, well, actually, yes, I can. I struggle with a few things, but when I've got a good team behind me, and good support, and sort of good focus that I've sort of developed, that yeah, actually I can. And I hope that somebody watching this, or somebody sees my social posts and they see the hashtag I race with autism, and they might be autistic. They might not be. They might be a neurotypical, and just go, well, actually, yeah, I can do that too, kind of thing. And people shouldn't be afraid of chasing their dreams. I just wish that it was something that I did, 10, 15 years ago when I was a lot younger, and you'd have more possibly be further up than I am now. But the fact that I'm racing, and I tell people that I race, and people go, "You're a racing driver? That's awesome." To me, that's something that for years I've felt that I've not really accomplished anything. And now I'm actually going out and doing something with my life that I've always wanted to do, and I'm doing quite well. I think that's a great thing.
Well, for one, all I can say, Ben, is that in terms of accomplishments and what you've achieved, I mean, over your shoulder, you probably need a bigger shelf or bigger bookcase soon.
I think I'm going to have to build another shelf up here for the rest. But obviously, no guarantees. But you want to chase silverware. That's sort of winning is sort of, or winning trophies is important. But it's completing races and getting that experience, and just growing, I think.
Yeah, well, we probably won't video your shelf mounting wall fitting skills on the next podcast. Perhaps we'll be catching up with a few more trophies on the wall, but we'll leave any DIY to your own private time, and we'll very much look forward to seeing the results. So, in terms of this year and next year, what are your goals for 2024, and what might you have in store in terms of aims and goals for 2025?
Well, for this year, obviously, now in the full championship at Castle Combe. So currently, just after the first two rounds of the first race meeting, I'm now in a three-way tie for fourth in class. It's very, very exciting. So for this year, I'm looking to chase position in class sort of at the end of the year standing. So I'm now in a championship battle with a couple of teammates and some other drivers. So for me, getting as high as I can, yes, it'd be great if I could take away some silverware this year, but it doesn't, it's not a guarantee. Last year it was a little bit easier to come by, smaller class. I kind of almost basically just had to finish the race to get a trophy. So I've actually got to fight for position now, and I've got to fight for points, and that's more rewarding to me. So at the end of the season, if I don't finish third or second or first, that I know that I can walk away and go, actually, I fought for that, and I got to that position because I worked for it, So that's sort of the goals for this year, is to finish as high as I can in the Class E standings at Castle Combe. And then sort of moving on to next year, well, I could possibly go back into one of the team's more developed cars, and I'd have a better chance of finishing in that top three. Or I may even look to another championship. I'm obviously working for the Focus Cup now for 2 years. The idea of doing the whole championship as a driver is quite appealing to me. Very, very good caliber championship. Simon Walton runs a really, really fantastic outfit. Good sort of engagement with the drivers and the mechanics, the good standard of driving. And a national championship, obviously, as far as going from a regional one, it's like another big step up. And also on the social side, I'm hoping to, just continually grow the following, and just sort of build that sort of Ben Pemberton racing brand, and maybe obviously talking to, the sponsor who does clothing, that, maybe we can do something down the road in a couple of years, and some Ben Pemberton racing hats or stickers or something just to kind of, help grow that brand. And then obviously, I'd love to be able to bring on some really good sponsorship and just see sort of where I can take my motorsports career. I'm sort of very optimistic, but also I'm a realist. I know that it's very, very difficult to get into something like Formula One and really higher level racing. Not impossible, very, very difficult for someone of my age, because I'm pushing 40. So, 20 and younger is usually sort of where you want to be in that sort of level. And then obviously the money side. If I can make more money doing my job and getting sponsorship, we'll just see where we can go with it. So I'm just looking to see where I can go with my motorsports career, whether it be driving, spannering, working on cars, or possibly, like you said, commentating later on in life. I think that's another avenue. It's certainly piqued my interest since getting into motorsports. So that's sort of where I am with it right now, and sort of where I'm sort of looking in the not too distant future, and maybe the distant future. But we'll see. You never know. Could win the lottery.
Well, so 2024 competition hotting up, and you've touched again on some of the opportunities. So whether it's track side, behind the wheel, the mechanical side of it, or brand ambassador side and promotional side of it, then the opportunities, whilst competitive environment in terms of both on track and off track, something that you've got to be in it to get to grips and win it. And succeed in it. And certainly, Ben, from the story you've shared with us today, you've got a really strong foothold in both the competition side, the mechanical side, and also the promotional and commercial side and the business side. So that's really encouraging for personally for yourself, but also for those listening that are thinking of how to even start to get into racing, or if they are in racing, how to perhaps progress and move forwards. So before we finish up, Ben, what advice would you give to others wanting to follow in your tyre tracks, be they a future mechanic, wanting to race competitively, or to get into the sort of business commercial side of things? What sort of tips or advice would you want to share with those sort of people today?
Well, okay, so from the sort of mechanical side, I would suggest, if you're still in school or maybe sort of a college age, I suppose you could go to college at any age, but if you're sort of younger and more interested in that side of thing, I would say just honestly, just approaching different teams. There's a lot of arrive and drive companies out there, and they're looking for people on the odd weekend to just come and wipe the cars down, throw some fuel in, grab tires, that kind of thing. And doing something like that on weekends, and you show up regularly and you say, look, next season, could you maybe take me on? Sort of on the books, sort of full time for the season, is a good way to get your foot in the door. Certainly doing things like a level 3 motorsport mechanic course or online degrees can certainly get you up to sort of the designer kind of engineer level, if that's something more, the more technical side, as opposed to the sort of more hands-on spanner side. It's all sort of what you want, where you want to go with it kind of thing. So I kind of like the hands-on, but I like the technical side, but I'm more of the hands-on. I kind of don't mind getting my hands dirty. It's sort of what I do in my job anyway.
Okay.
So there's that. And then as far as driving, certainly I've said it before and I'll say it again, be prepared to spend a little bit of money, but don't think, you know, you need 100 grand to live out your dream. I'm living out my dreams racing, and it's costing me a bit under 10 grand all in, which isn't too bad. It's quite a bit of money, you know, but it's not a substantial wedge, you know. It's not like it's a new car. It's not a deposit on a house. But, you know, you be prepared to make a few changes, cancel the Amazon or Netflix or just anywhere you can scrounge up some money, pocket money, anything to just get out and just do a track day or something to get yourself sort of in that zone and get a feel for what it's like to be on track. And then sort of talk to people. The best thing I could say is talk to people in the situation a little bit above where you are right now and where you want to be. And that information trickles down and helps you sort of climb up that way as well, which is basically what I did.
So talk to people, be brave, perhaps move a little bit out your comfort zone.
Yes.
Relationships are always important. They can start from small things, a conversation trackside, or just attending a meeting that you alluded to earlier and just getting to talk to people. Of course, there is the internet. So it's a little bit difficult perhaps to send a cold email or a cold message. But from personal experience, if you're part of the racing community and can perhaps say you've done a couple of things in racing already and share some of that, then from what you told us today, Ben, it seems that people are more willing to engage you on that level and see what you can each do to work together for each other's benefit going forwards.
Yeah, certainly. I think that the good thing about motorsport is it's usually a lot of sort of mutual benefit. So it's, well, I can bring this to the table if you can sort of get me a little bit further on, kind of thing. And it just seems to be that kind of symbiotic relationship I found in motorsport. Whereas usually, you know, even people that aren't necessarily that mechanically minded, it's just there's something that you can bring to the table to a race team. Usually they will try and find a position for you to do something, whether it's even not even working on the cars, but just being a bit of a host in the VIP section for some of their corporate clients and just a friendly face, someone who's passionate about motorsport but may not be spanner savvy. You know, there's always something you can do. It's, you know, just moving tires or wiping cars down and stuff like that. You know, there's some young people that are wiping down cars that I will probably never sit in my entire life. So I consider them like more fortunate than I. So certainly, yeah, it's just get yourself out there. There's a lot of Facebook groups, a lot of the like championships, people offering arrive and drives. Go on the internet, Race Cars Direct, Pit Lane Connections on Facebook, motorsportjobs.com, and just look for anything. If it's part-time hospitality, it can just get you in the door. And you never know, in 5-10 years time, you could be a #1 mechanic, a chief engineer. If you've got that passion and that drive to sort of succeed, and you are able to sort of express yourself and sort of, you know, like, look, this is me. I'll show up every day. I'll do what you ask me to. I'll listen. I'll learn. I can bring you this to the table. People will listen to you and people will go, actually, you know what? This guy's good. And also motorsport's quite a small, well-knit community. So word travels fast. If you're a good guy and you work well, people will go, oh, I like him. He's all right. Yeah, he's asked for a job. I think we should give it to him or give it to her. Either or, you know? It sort of works that way.
Okay, and just as a passing shot, if you like, sponsor-driven or the sponsor-driven driver profile portal, you're on there. Tell us a few last comments about that portal and perhaps how that can help drivers promote themselves and share what they're about.
Yeah, so Sponsor Driven is a fantastic platform that's basically created to help club level and sort of entry level racers develop the sort of tools that they need to acquire sponsorship. So it kind of works like Patreon, where you can receive small donations from as little as £2 a month or a one-off payment. So say, your birthday's coming up and, your grandma wants to give you a bit of money. Well, so, instead of giving me some cash, could you just put it on my sponsor driven page? It kind of works in that kind of way. But what the platform is eventually looking to do is to help young, new, upcoming drivers basically develop a social presence, develop the sort of marketing tools that you need to be able to approach maybe like sponsors that you feel might be a little bit out of your price range, and also to give drivers exposure. So, you get that social coverage, you get that kind of brand recognition, you get that sort of the basic fundamental tools that, guys in the British touring car, GTs and all that sort of have already. But it's just those fundamental building blocks to give you an idea of, actually, this isn't so difficult. I've got a few sort of skeletons, a few frames I can build around, and then sort of develop yourself to get to, wherever you want to go with it, really. So it's really fantastic. I really appreciate that I was able to get on board with that. And obviously check out the link, sponsor driven. Try and build yourself up a page and get on the waiting list. And I was just very, very fortunate. I sort of found it at the time that I did and was able to get picked up by it. But yeah, it's designed for guys and girls like us, new, entry level, just trying to get into racing and just help raise a few extra quid that could just mean that you get that set of brake pads, or you get that set of tires, or it just covers that entry fee, or if you've had a bit of an off, it just helps patch the car up a little bit. It's not a sort of a beer pit, it's not like, it's just going on beer money. It goes on your car. You need some new boots and times are a bit tight. Well, that few quid could just help you get some new boots to get you into that next race, so it's more sort of that, and it's sort of an all-encompassing platform designed to help people just sort of elevate themselves. I think it's sort of a good way to put it.
Okay. Well, Ben, you've been a fantastic guest on the Real Wheels podcast, Racing Stories, today. Thank you for sharing about your early memories with your father and watching those touring car and Formula One races, and also really your journey through obtaining your race license, and also the background of mechanics and all of the value that's added to your racing experience. You've also shared today around the commercial business side of racing and those all-important partnerships, some great input and insight into personal branding as well, and finishing off by giving some more personal sides to your multi-sided story around autism, how that in some ways could represent a challenge, but that certainly you've overcome and not let that, despite perhaps other opinions on people's opinions of surprise, that you've been able to achieve what you have with that, with autism. You've been able to achieve so much. And well, all I can say is the silverware over your shoulder says a lot about what you've achieved so early in your racing career, Ben. So I wish you all the well for your upcoming race at Castle Combe, and a busy summer in the Focus Cup of Spannering, and all of your other activities around racing and beyond. That you've got some clear goals for 2024 and 2025. And I for one, should be watching with great interest, and very much look forward to seeing how that grows for you. Thanks so much for joining us today, Ben, and all the best for this year and next year.
Oh, thank you very much, Danny. I really appreciate you having me on today. Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Racing Stories podcast, brought to you by Real Wheels Media, with me, your host, Danny Mattess. To share your story, contact us on social media: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok and X. To support our channel, please like, subscribe and share.